Did you ever think about when the toothpick industry might have shifted a bit for selling these more to look cool than just helping getting food out of your mouth? I already ate earlier, so don't worry, industry scouts. I definitely am using it for. Well, you know what? Actually, you caught me, catch 22. I definitely try to not have food in my mouth before I go on camera. Fail safe. Toothpicks are cool. You know what? I'll eat later. So don't worry about it. I'll have a nice tub of ice cream right after this. There's peanut butter cups in the ice cream. Maybe one gets stuck in my tooth. There you go. Reuse. yeah. One week later. Keep using the same one today. No worries. I have for years. It's kind of crazy that Mario Kart DS and Metroid Prime Hunters came out 1 year away from each other. And that's when they were pushing for Nintendo Wi-Fi connection. And I remember that in those games, you pick a character, you have all these weapons and items and tactics you use to win. And in both games, there was a weapon/item that was about disruption. Now, the Volt Driver from Candon is a rapid-fire weapon. It's really strong, even when Candon's not using it. Cool part about Metroid Prime Hunters is any character can use any weapon, but if a character uses their signature weapon, they get a bonus. In Candon's case, when he charges a Volt Driver shot, he causes the opponent's vision to be scrambled on their visor. What a cool effect. That's such a cool attribute to have in a first-person shooter. A year before, in Mario Kart DS, they introduced the blooper item, which when you use it, everyone in front of you gets hit with ink, and they can't see on their top screen. And I say can't see, but there's obviously, it's an ink effect, so there's some parts of the screen that aren't covered up. And I think what's fascinating is these are traits that aren't based on offense, defense, speed. Like they're not things that you can measure. They're not how much damage does vision scramble do, how much damage does a blooper do damage in balloon battle. That's which that's the funny part is the blooper's not in balloon battle. It's not a race anymore. But how much speed does the blooper reduce? It doesn't. It just causes disruption. And it's so interesting to think about bringing in basically human psyche into powers and abilities. We're not measuring on speed and attack and defense and healing. This is just something that causes disruption. And so it becomes this really wide range of trying to gather how effective is this? To the point that in Mario Kart DS, when you hit computers with the blooper, the game designers decided for the drivers to kind of swerve around a bit, act like, I'm hit with ink. But realistically, a lot of players would just look at the bottom screen. Now, to be fair, the blooper came back in Mario Kart Wii. Now you don't have a bottom screen. But even in that case, the blooper, you could still look through, around the ink. And if you have muscle memory of the track, it's not that long in terms of the effect of the ink lasting. And so you usually can tap into the muscle memory of the track, and usually you'll be okay. That being said, the blooper is a cool item. And I think the thing is with disruption is, it's a big reason I'm talking about it right now. What a fun debate in game design of how far can I throw ink on the opponent and that's going to make a big impact in the race? How far can I scramble someone's vision and they miss a snipe? And then you think about, disruption is in games that don't even have items dedicated to it. In fighting games, you can just disrupt someone by not having them land their attacks. I make fun of players in Super Smash Bros. Melee Online where, Yoshi can't jump out of shield and my grab goes on the Z-axis. So what that means is that I'm working around these traits of Yoshi by finding other methods for defense and calling out my opponent's defense. You can still obviously use shield very effectively, you can use his grab very effectively, but Yoshi's a lot different from a lot of other characters. And so I've been pushing evasion. If my opponent is wanting me to run into their shield and they know that I can't instantly grab them because Yoshi's run grab first goes on the Z-axis, like his tongue moves over, There are opponents that take advantage of that. They will run up, shield against me, or they throw projectiles and wait for me to approach, and they'll shield, because to them it's like, oh, he can't grab me, so he's gonna have to break this shield, and then I can attack out of shield. Now, obviously, Yoshi has a command grab, all this thing, all these different ways to approach. You can try to wither down their shield with eggs. Regardless, I've picked up by evading their hitboxes even just a few times. There are players that just snowball in anger from unmet expectations, creating its own form of disruption. My patience is now a form of disruption, and this goes back to the power of human psyche, and again, a blooper, a Volt Driver scramble. And this even goes into trading card games. Pokemon TCG has this awesome card called Judge, and it's been around since 2010 with the Unleashed set. And I remember when Judge came out, and talking to my friends, Ryan Green, Vance Kelly, Peter Wallace, for years about how no matter the format, Judge is so interesting because each player can only play one supporter per turn. So you're dedicating your supporter to giving you and your opponent a new hand of 4. So I think a new player might say, why would I want to give my opponent a new hand? I get a new hand, but why would I give my opponent that? We have the same hand now. And I played my supporter, they haven't played theirs yet, but the thing with Judge is it has the power of disruption, and that power of disruption really does have basically a unlimited ceiling of effectiveness, but it also could be not super effective at times. Again, there can be cases where you judge them and they only had a hand of 1. Now you just gave them a bunch of Pokemon they can evolve with next turn, right? But then on the other hand, in that format specifically, 2010, the most meta deck was Luxray Garchomp, which was Luxray GL, Garchomp C. And that deck was all about having all these different, items and supporters and Pokemon that can handle so many matchups. It was a toolbox of problem-solving utility options, and one of its strengths was, oh, this is my current problem, let me retrieve this. This is my problem, let me retrieve this Pokemon. This Team Galactic's invention, right? They just had a lot of answers to a lot of problems. By playing Judge, their now hand of an average of 6 to 8 went down to 4. Sometimes even more than 8, thanks to a lot of cards like Cyrus's Conspiracy and Uxie to give them a lot of cards. So by playing Judge, hit them down to 4. Sometimes a game, in terms of momentum, that could be it. Like for the Luxray Garchomp player, if you reduce their hand to 4, and they just lost all their utility answers to your problem you're promoting to them, that disruption can possibly win you the game from there on out. And so I've just been thinking about disruption is it's not easy to spot for a player. Again, attack, defense, speed, HP, special attack, special defense, these are all stats on a Pokemon. These are stats in a lot of games when special attack, special defense sometimes can be redistributed into like magic shields. I say in real life, special attack kind of actually goes around disruption. Almost, they talk about like mental damage, psychic damage. Goes back to making people angry in fighting games. You can do that special attack, and then your special defense is if they try to make you angry but it doesn't get to you, a strong composure. And so disruption is just, I think we're only hitting the tip of the iceberg when it comes to competitive discussions on how powerful it can be. That being said, it also, at times you sand attack your opponent. Oh, I disrupted your accuracy, and they could switch, right? Sometimes there can be a nice remedy to this disruption. And so it's just, again, this fascinating thing where you can't necessarily pin down stats for disruption, but it's more about a study of what's the current environment, the competitive environment. How do people react to this? How do people not react to this? It's great, it's like in Team Fortress 2, just the presence of a spy can cause opponents to panic. But then there's some people that don't panic and they're like, let me go after the spy. And then, disruption. It doesn't have to just be spy. There are so many times I see an enemy scout or soldier get to our respawn point. They venture off into these different flank routes. They get to our respawn area and they just jump and run around. And if they're getting like 3 to 5 people to try to, pig chase them down, that's a huge majority of our team not playing the objective. And so they've done an amazing job at disruption, cutting up the team just to go after them. So that power of disruption, there's so much untapped potential there, and it comes down to how will opponents react to this disruption. It's always fun to keep marks of how people react to things, and you hope that in the range of improvement, you understand that things might not go your way, but if you're ready to catch those curveballs, you might be able to up your record at the batting score. I say catching curveballs, but obviously, hitting the curveball. But if you hit the curveball and someone catches the curveball, is that disruption meets disruption? Preparation meets preparation. Stay honed out there. Keep at it. And, honestly, next time someone does throw sand attack on your Pokemon, you could ask yourself, what was the intent here? And it's cool. It's cool to see when players are pushing strategies that might not be popular, but just the thought of someone throwing sand attack on a top level OU game might get you pondering, ooh, what are they up to? Always fun to see what strategies people bring to the table, whether it's Pokemon, Team Fortress 2, Super Smash Bros., Mario Kart DS, Metroid Prime Hunters, and many more. Keep at it. Keep honing your strategy skills. And honestly, I think just being able to... I think disruption is its own discussion of understanding that strategies go beyond just stats on a board. I love Mondays.